Marenko, our man, says, tools versus agency training. Did you listen to it? I did, and built a strategy flow from it, did a strategy session with a bot, then built a project and built out 7 different tools along with sales pages, LinkedIn articles, and 4 different ways to think through it. End result, my first tool is ready to ship. Tool number 1, a GBP keyword visibility tool. The secret to ranking higher on Google isn't more SEO. It's seeing what Google already sees and knows how to use that data. It says, can we stop pretending no upfront cost database reactivation is a no-brainer offer? Because according to the timer acronym, it is. How do I sell my shit in video? How do I sell my shit in video? How do I sell my shit in video?
Yo, it's Frankie Fihn. Beach mode engaged. Looms loaded, AI's humming. Let's go!
Welcome to another Agency Owners Q&A, our weekly Q&A. You guys are asking good questions. I'm doing my best to answer. For those of you guys who know me, my name's Frankie Fihn. Wrote those 2 best-selling books. You can see them up there. Built 3 of my own agencies over 20 years. And also have helped thousands of people worldwide to live this more beach, less laptop lifestyle. And we got some really awesome topics today. Just a quick little announcement before we get rocking and rolling. I did a training that I actually think is really, really impactful for those of you guys who just either A, suck at fulfillment, or B, don't want to do it. For me, I'm the latter. I know how to do it, but I don't want to build teams and systems and all that shit. I'm just past that point in my life. And I did a free training on how to turn your service into tools. And the reason for that training is that tools have infinite scalability that services don't. Services, like you see this, like it's really hard to scale an accounting agency. Way harder than scaling an accounting software. Why? Because the software is a fucking tool, right? So like the people who made QuickBooks scaled way bigger than most accounting agencies, and did it easier, I might add, because, tools have leverage that services don't. So I'm not saying you can't scale a service. I've helped many people to cross the $1 million mark scaling services, but in this day and age, I prefer to scale tools. So if you guys are interested in that, shoot me a message and I'll send you a replay of the training we did on that. Anyways, that's all I got for you guys in the announcement side. Let's get into the good shit with the man they call the man, the greatest of all time, the golden dad guns, His Holiness the Dude. It's me, Frankie Fihn. All right, need a drink for the shenanigans. As you can tell, I watched too much wrestling in the 90s growing up. Although I haven't watched wrestling in like 20 years. I like the old shit. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Frankie Fihn proudly brings to you our weekly Q&A. All right. So actually, first comment is from John. This wasn't a question, but I obviously just kind of wanted to rant on it for a little bit because I think it'll be useful to you guys. John Marenko, our man, says, tools versus agency training. Did you listen to it? I did, and built a strategy flow from it, did a strategy session with a bot, then built a project and built out 7 different tools along with sales pages, LinkedIn articles, and 4 different ways to think through it. End result, my first tool is ready to ship. Tool number 1, a GBP keyword visibility tool. The secret to ranking higher on Google isn't more SEO. It's seeing what Google already sees and knows how to use that data. John mentioned this. I think part of the reason you guys should check out that free training on turning your service into tools is because even if you intend for the rest of your life to sell services, and there are plenty of reasons to do that, high ticket recurring being probably chief among the highest reasons, is that tools make for a great front door. So we're in a trust economy where if you look at where prospects feel about marketers and agency owners and our crowd in general, trust max being, I love these guys. They're experts. I believe everything they say. They know this best. Opposite of that being con man, snake oil salesman, cocksucking piece of shit. If you look at where most prospects see us on the scale, it's closer to this than it is to this. And so trust is harder and harder. And so one of the easiest ways to get your foot in the door is to create a free tool that helps people with a piece of the process. You want to think about this more like an appetizer than the whole dinner. You're not giving them the whole thing. You're giving them just one little piece of the puzzle. So John mentioned a keyword tool, right? Like if you do SEO for people, they have to rank for certain keywords. It's obvious to you, if you do SEO, which keywords those are. Like when I did water damage restoration, Water Damage Restoration Denver, Water Damage Restoration Companies Denver, Emergency Flood Repair Denver, those kind of things. It's really, really obvious, but it's not as obvious to the prospect. They actually don't know what people are using to search and find them. And so you build a tool and show them these are how people are trying to find you. Your expertise is fucking established. So that like moves in the direction of your sale easier than had you not had that tool. And tools are super value add without being pushy, right? It's like I built a tool that'll show you how people are trying to find you. Can I send you the free tool, right? It's also a good way to get prospects to raise their hand. The flip side of that is that tool can be sold as a standalone. Hey, you want to find out what the top money-making keywords are in your industry related to water damage restoration? I built a free tool that at the click of a button will tell you, and then you can audit them one by one and see if you want if your SEO company is actually doing its job, again, leading into the sale of your thing. So my point being, even if you don't want to sell tools, like they're very, very useful as foot in the door kind of things. And also they help on the fulfillment side because, for example, if you're going to do keyword research for each and every client you get, like if you build an internal tool, you're going to be able to execute on that faster and easier and better and more consistently than if you didn't have that tool. So I'm a big fan of this process, and I'll tell you the shift. I kind of mentioned this in the training, but I know some of you guys haven't seen it yet. The big shift that I made mentally years ago, and credit to a mentor of mine, Travis Sago, who's been a big influence on this, but is I realized that I wanted to be in the intellectual property business and not in the service business. Okay? And there's a huge difference between those. In the intellectual property business, kind of like a landlord does where they rent access to a building, rent access to a system, it's very different than when you're getting hired and you, like a lot of people when they're in the service provider thing, essentially clients look at you like a fucking glorified employee. You work for me. So instead of not having a job and having one boss, you have 27 clients and you have 27 bosses, right? That doesn't apply to tools, right? Like I'm actually just signing up for a software this morning. I don't feel like I can message the software creator and be like, call me right fucking now. I need an update on where things are at. It's a tool, right? I'm the one expected to execute on the tool. And by the way, it's a monthly recurring tool. So, and by the way, this is why when agencies sell, they typically sell for 2 to 3x multiple. So if you're doing $1 million a year, you know, obviously it depends on your profit margins and how systematized, but as a general rule, somebody would buy that for like 2 to 3 million. If you have a software that's doing $1 million a year, people would generally pay 20 to 30 for that. So you get 20 to 30 million. So why does software make 10 times the amount of money when it's time to cash out? And the answer is because it's a fucking tool and tools scale better. So it's easier for them to add force to it. Like as we're a service, they got to add team and fulfillment and more expectation setting and more account managers. I'm not against all of those things. And in fact, I'm happy to train you guys, those of you guys who want to do it, on how to do it. We have hiring swipe files and things like that that'll make your life a lot easier for getting those people and resources and people who can just do it for you. But at the end of the day, man, like when you scale tools, you don't have any of those problems. And so what I'm seeking to do personally is amass a tool empire that can be rented and rented and rented. And tools provide access to your expertise without you doing it. So if you guys are interested in that, like please, for the love of all things holy, drop a comment, just say free training, or send me a message and I'll send it to you because like that shit is straight up gangster, bitch. All right. Good comment, John. I'm glad you took action on that. It always excites me when I put some free shit out there. You never know when you put free shit out there what people are going to do with it. And a lot of times when you, especially free shit because they haven't paid for it, like typically like the most common thing people do is nothing. So when somebody goes and builds 7 tools and sales pages, I'm like, dude, you're fucking badass. Anyways, that's one of the things that makes you a badass, by the way, John, as somebody who knows you a little bit personally, is that you take ideas and you run with them and you build and you make shit happen. So I love seeing that. We got 2 in a row from Andrew. And I just want to say firstly, Andrew, dude, as somebody who's been in your shoes, I feel a lot of frustration in some, and especially your second question. And I've been there myself. I just want you to know I relate to that shit. I've been there. So like massive empathy for you and what you're going through. So anyways, first question. This was the less frustrated question of the 2. It says, anyone here had a success with a revenue share deal specifically for new leads? I always assumed revenue share was specifically for old dead leads that a client is not doing anything with anymore, but I was presented with an opportunity for a rev-share deal to bring in new leads. He says they already have a rev-share partner working their old dead leads. He tells me their average order value is $17K and they can pay 13% revenue share, so roughly $2K. I'm ballparking. I'm not really in a position to be turning down opportunities, so probably be best to accept it. I will probably just white label it anyways. Just wondering what deliverables might work best for something like this. So just so you know, most people fail at client selection in general, and in a retainer model, it's less of an issue because at least you're getting paid up front. They will cancel after like 2-3 months, but at the end of the day, at least you're getting paid up front. So you're not totally 100% wasting your effort. But when it comes to revenue share deals, you have to like really, really, really know how to pick partners, or you just work for free. And nobody wants to work for free. And so as a general rule, what I always propose to any revenue share partner, and believe it or not, what you described, because you sent me some messages about this person as well, this actually sounds like a very good candidate, like a very good fit. But even still, before I invest my life savings in them, I propose, let's do a little test for a week or two. I'll generate you just a couple of leads, and I want to see how you handle them and see if it works for both of us. And if it does, we can scale up. And it's my dating equivalent of saying, hey, before we fucking have 6 kids and like go to Disneyland every year, why don't we just have a first date and make sure we like dating each other? And I'll tell you, as somebody who did this in the past, my favorite way of first dating a revenue share partner on cold shit like this, especially home services, is go to Craigslist once or twice a day, post an ad that says, we do kitchen remodeling, we do whatever, write a good ad, obviously, and they will get a couple of phone calls from it. And you want to see how they handle it. And I would use a tracking phone number for those. We used to use one called CallFire. Everybody uses CallRail, but CallFire was super cheap. It was like $1 to get a number. And for the amount of minutes you need, like under $5, you can be in business and have a tracking phone number and see how that partner handles leads. And actually hear the phone calls, by the way, and have recordings of those. Which I think is an important detail in the process. Now, what you're describing, because you asked, has anybody ever done this? It is called a pay-per-lead model, and we have lots of people doing pay-per-lead. And there are pros and cons to every model, just so you know. So the pros are, when you pick a pay-per-lead model client, that motherfucker scales. We have people doing like more than $100,000 per month with a single client. And that is because they're getting paid for the results, not for a monthly retainer. Now, if you ask a client to pay you $100,000 a month up front, like they'll probably laugh you out of the fucking building. In most cases, there are some exceptions. We do actually have people doing $100K a month with retainers, but they are few and far between. For every one person doing it on a retainer, we got 20 people doing it on pay-per-lead. Why? Because the upside is bigger. But also with the upside being bigger, so is the downside. And the downside is you may work for free. Now, I'll tell you when pay-per-lead works really, really well. Pay-per-lead works really, really well when you have ran ads in your industry for a while and you know through and through what the cost is. So, for example, when we did our motorcycle case stuff, we eventually switched to a pay-per-lead model. And it was very simple. I knew that in any market, I could run ads, and for $10 a piece, I could get email signups. And then we would do all the nurturing for them for like 6 to 12 months. And so I'd say we charge $40 an email sign up. And I knew that we could get them for 10, sometimes $12 on the high side. But I knew every time somebody signed up, we'd make $20, $30. So I would have to foot the ad expense out of my own account. And I was willing to do that because every time somebody signed up, I made $25, $30, right? So we just do that a bunch, and we could get them like 300 to 500 leads a month typically on what we were doing, and then the ads would start to kind of like tail off. But 300 to 500 a month, you get at $40 a piece. You're getting $12K a client. That's hard to do on retainer. I'm not saying it can't be done. So we like that model a lot better. The other thing I wanted to say is whenever somebody proposes a revenue share deal and you're thinking about doing it, before you jump into bed, before you got 6 babies, before you guys sign the papers and move in and live together, first date, first date, first date. And I'm really looking for two things on a first date. What do they do with the leads I actually send them? Do they call them back? Do they work the leads? Do they know how to sell? Do they know how to give quotes? Do they show up on time? Do they do what they say they're going to do? That's actually really rare, especially in home services, but really in every industry. And then secondly, do they pay me as they said they're going to pay me? Hey, I sent you 10 leads, 2 of them closed. What happens? If they take their sweet ass time with paying me, then that's a very different scenario. And sometimes there can be reasons for payment delays, right? Like, I'll tell you one of the biggest things. Like, I have a couple of partners right now. Like, you know, I'm debating whether I should pay them at all, because it's like they didn't do the part they said they were going to do, and I ended up doing it anyway. And now they're going, "Where's my money?" I'm like, "But you didn't do the part you said you were going to do. I did all of it. So what am I sharing in, right? I probably will, but I'm taking my sweet ass time and doing it reluctantly, I might add." So that's kind of like the revenue. And for those of you guys thinking of doing a revenue share, I want to make one key detail really clear. The people who propose revenue share deals to you are almost always broke, starving, down and out, bottom of the barrel people in the industry. And they'll say, you know, "I've had nothing but bad experience with marketers. Why don't you bring me some business and then I'll pay you?" Like, fucking run. It works really, really well when people are the top 1 to 5% of their industry. So in home services, it means they got a team already. They're closing jobs. They got salespeople. They got a CRM. They got branded trucks. They drive to people's house. They got a quoting software. They got a quoting tool. They have follow-up systems, things like that. If they have those in place, that makes for a really good revenue share partner. So I would totally first date this person if I was in your shoes. But I would be careful to like jump in bed because the last thing you want to do is be working for free and then be messaging them 17 times and going, "When are you going to pay me?" We actually just had that with a real estate partner. By the way, revenue share deals don't always work out. We generated him 37 opportunities, and we wanted to see the status, and he just locked us out of his system and whatever, right? And had we been married and in bed, that would have been catastrophic. But because we did a first date and invested a couple of hours, which I mostly had my virtual assistant set up, it was like, whatever. So you win some, you lose some, right? So that's the downside, by the way, is by the way, what I just described is most people can't handle doing anything and not getting paid. But my kind of 2 cents personally is, you're a fucking entrepreneur. Most of what you do isn't getting paid. Deal with it. The way you deal with it is the way an investor deals with it is you manage the risk. And the way you manage the risk is I ain't going to do a whole lot for you out of the gates until you've demonstrated to me that you know what to do. So like that's why I said I'd post some Craigslist ads, generate some leads, see what happens, follow up with them, and then based on that, I would decide whether I wanted to scale it or not scale it. Oh, and the one other detail I wanted to mention just before I move on to the next question. It is not so easy to find white label pay-per lead people. What I would look for is people like on LinkedIn, on Facebook that have in their profile that they already do pay-per-lead for that industry and see if they're open to a partnership where you guys can, you know, you provide the client and you guys can split some of the money. But I would not, you won't be able to find a white label company because white label companies are just like any other industry. They want to be paid up front. And it doesn't always work in a revenue share deal where you're going to spend $3,000 and there's no guarantee you're going to get anything back. So you want to manage risk and do it with somebody who already knows how to manage that risk, right? Anyways, this was the more frustrated question. So I wanted to kind of, and I'm gonna rant on this second question of yours, Andrew, not just for your own benefit, but for other people who are in a similar situation. Okay. He says, can we stop pretending no upfront cost database reactivation is a no-brainer offer? Because according to the timer acronym, it is. But at the end of the day, we're asking someone else to give us their list of old leads and then trust us to not sell it off to anyone else. That's a hard sell. I literally had a prospect tell me this recently. There are other ways for me to mitigate risk besides passing over my customer contact list for SMS communication, etc. There's ways built into my system that I can manage that on my own end, so you could see that pass off customer information would not mitigate risk, but would open me up to risk. So therefore, I'm going to have to pass on this. I just have ways that I can set it up in my system. I just haven't moved forward with it, and that would put everything in house and still would not expose me to a customer data breach, so to speak, because what else are you going to do with that customer data? I have no idea. Not trying to say I don't trust you, but you've got to look at it out and mitigate risk. That's the name of the business. What concerns me, this is you, Andrew, again, is Seems like a perfectly valid objection. Why would someone that worked hard to acquire their customer list just willingly hand it over to someone? I mean, shit, I wouldn't. All right. So let's unpack a little bit of this. Firstly, I want to talk about the mental, emotional side, the frustration of, hey, let's stop pretending this is an easy thing. And I'll tell you one thing I learned years ago. Even free shit has to be sold. Even free shit. So like it's a hard truth, but if I create a lead magnet and I just say, who wants my lead magnet? You know who's going to raise their hand? Fucking nobody. Because people don't wake up and go, I want lead magnets, right? So I have to sell like the benefits. So like we had a lead magnet for years in the attorney space. It was like, you know, the 26-point checklist for getting referrals used by all the top attorneys in the world. It's a culmination of all the systems they use that include everything they do before they get a client, during when they're a client, and after the effect. And you can implement at least one of these ideas in the next 10 minutes with links to all the setups. Who wants it? That's better than who wants my lead magnet. I still have to describe what's in it for them, why they would want it. So a couple of the things. So even free shit, as you've experienced, or I'm not asking for money up front, not that it's free, has objections. Selling has objections. So I want you to understand that the real issue is that you simply don't know how to handle that objection. And really, if it was me, I would handle it two ways. One is transparently show them the kind of messages I intend to send to their people. Actually, that's one. I can actually think of three ways. Two is I would say, if it's just data you're concerned about, I can run it inside of your system so you don't have to hand off any data to a third-party person. Three, I would say something like, if you want, before we just like you turn over your whole customer list, why don't we just run a little test to 100 or 200 people and I'll show you that this is trustworthy and blah, blah, blah. Why don't we just take a small segment of your list and I'll show you that this works, right? And then it's transparently showing them what I'm going to do. And often I'll do this with humor, is I'll say, hey, you don't have to worry. I'm not going to take your data and go sell it to the Cuban drug lords and then move to an island. I just want to tell your people thank you and invite them to book a kitchen job again. And here's an example message I'm going to send. I don't have any third-party tools. I don't sell data. And sometimes I'll tell people to clinch them. I'm like, Google my name. I have been doing this 20 years. If I had scammed somebody over data, surely at some point that would have come up in the last 2 decades. Right? So that's another thing you can do. Is like, if you're worried I'm going to take your shit and run and do something stupid, Google my name. Because surely some other home contractor would have complained about the same thing. So then the other piece is as mentioned, they said, I can just do it myself. And you have to be like, well, then why haven't you? And the answer, by the way, is because it's fucking work. And they don't have time to do it. And it's also it's more difficult work for them than it is for you. Because, for example, like if I'm working with a contractor and they ask me to fix a kitchen, that's going to be way easier for them to do than for me, who don't know shit about working with their hands. I would have to go buy tools. I would have to figure shit out. Same thing when it gets to the technology side of it. But I'm telling you, even free shit has to be sold. And so what I wanted to kind of reiterate, coming back to the mindset piece, is most people don't realize this when they're in a situation like you were. And I'll share this with my own experience, is that I spent 6 months and I had conversations with maybe about 50 lawyers when I was restarting my second agency. Not one of them bought my shit. Every single one of them had objections, almost always the same objection. And when I eventually overcame the objection, what I realized through the process is that I was actually 99 yards up the field, and I just needed to figure out that one last yard objection. And in reality, I felt mentally, emotionally, spiritually even, like I felt a million miles away from my goal. I thought, nobody's ever going to say yes. This is too hard. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to sell my shit. Maybe I should just get it. All those things were very front and center and real. In reality, if I could have looked at it objectively, I was one objection away. So you say I wouldn't give up my entire customer list? Then don't ask him to. Just say, hey, let's run a little fucking test on a segment. Here's how I'm going to keep your data secure. This is what I'm going to do. Google my name. You don't need to worry about the shit. I'm just going to say thank you. I'm not disappearing to a fucking drug island. I know you said you can set this up in your system, but the reality is you fucking haven't. By the way, there's something I learned in dating that I think is a useful analogy. So I learned this from, shout out to our man Dave Miz. By the way, Dave Miz was the first guy I knew online making real money, so I studied all this shit. He had a thing called insider internet dating. It was all about, like, you know, early days of dating before there were apps and shit like that. And, you know, he knew how to write cool profiles because he was a marketer, and he knew how to message women. Outreach, same shit, right? And he said, if you're hitting on a really pretty girl that knows it and is used to being hit on, they have a thing called a shit test. And a shit test is they will sort of slough you off as a human being and sort of like reject you automatically. And the reason for that is very simple, is that if they said yes to everybody, they would literally have to fuck guys all day long because they would get hit on 50, 100 times a day. And so I look at it like me, like I'm a little micro influencer on the grand scheme of the internet. I'm nobody, but I'm an influencer enough. I get pitched a lot. And if I said yes to everybody who said, let's jump on a call, I probably only could get to about 25, 30% of them. And I still wouldn't be able to take all the calls that requested it in my schedule. So my first instinct is like automatically reject you. That doesn't mean, by the way, I'm not interested. It doesn't mean that they're not interested. They just have to have a way to disqualify people. And so part of what they're looking for from you is real pushback to say, no, really, this thing is fucking valuable for you. Let me do it for you for real. In the same way that, like, the pretty girl who instantly rejects a guy is looking for somebody to say, no, I'm really interested in you. And here's why. I know you're probably used to just rejecting guys, but I'm still standing here for a reason. And it's a stance as much as Dusan Dukovic calls it. It's a place you come from just as much as a... And what happens as it is a tactic or a strategy. And what happens is when you get through phases, which agency growth, especially those beginning phases, have it, where you don't really have any sales and people aren't saying yes, you get into this phase where you just start to believe nobody will say yes. And so you almost come across as like a door-to-door salesperson knocks on the door and says, hey, you don't want to buy one of these, do you? And they go, not really. And you go, have a nice day. And what you need to do is have a compelling reason why, like, no, dude, you really need this. You got your crews of guys are slow. I know it's in your fucking CRM, but you haven't done it. It's been a fucking year. Let me do it. You don't have to risk your entire fucking database. I'm just going to say thank you and blah, blah, blah. You can Google me. I haven't fucked anybody over yet. You're not going to lose your data or whatever. Let's just start with 100 people. I'll show you it works. I'll show you I'm trustworthy. And then we can build on it from there. Why don't we just run a little test? And the stance you have to get into, by the way, to getting people to say yes to database reactivation is getting used to the idea it's a small ask. If you treat it like a big ask, they're going to treat it like a big ask. And also, we'll know by Friday whether or not this shit is going to work. So why don't we just fucking run it and find out? I can tell you whether or not I'm going to bring you jobs by the end of the week. Right? We don't need a million fucking years to figure this shit out. Let's just run a little test. We'll find out. And almost always, you don't realize this, but when this is for all of you guys that are in those phases, you unconsciously make it a big ask. And this shows up in your language because you make yes or no the biggest part of the decision, not let me tell you what's next. I'll give you an example of how I used to do this. When I was in phases where I didn't believe anybody would buy my shit, and I didn't believe anything was working out, and I didn't believe I knew what I was doing, and all that kind of shit, I'd say, so let me know if you want to get started. And they'd give me a reason why they didn't, and I'd say, okay, well, thanks for talking, okay? When I was in phases where sales were the most normal thing, which is how I treat it now, I would say, hey, just so you know, the price is blah, blah, blah. And the very first thing we're going to do after you say yes is we're going to, besides put your credit card details in, we're going to get started on this piece. I got a little form. I'm going to need this, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to ask whoever your person is with the login. I'm going to ask for this. We can export them. I can do it in your system. It doesn't really fucking matter to me. I'm happy to make this as easy as possible. It'll take about 10 minutes to set up, but then we'll be done the painful part of the process. And then what I'm hoping is from those first few hundred people that we should get between 3 to 5 like actual real world estimates, and you should close a job or two, but I won't know until we actually run it. But if it's not going to work, I'll let you know as quickly as possible and we can back out of this. You down to run a little test, right? And notice in there a key detail. I didn't make the yes or no a heavy decision. In fact, I almost made it automatic that they were going to say yes and started, future pacing them, if you will, about what's going to happen next. So when you're not used to people saying yes, you make yes or no a heavy decision because you just expect to be rejected. When you're used to hearing yes, you immediately talk about what's going to happen after yes, and you describe the process of like what getting started would look like. And I guarantee you, if I can listen in on whatever conversations you're having, it's like a let me know if you want to do this, and then they're telling you no, instead of let me tell you how this works. If you decide you want to do this, first thing we're going to do is this. The next thing we're going to do is that, blah, 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 blah. And what I need from you is this. Does that all make sense? Is that something we should move forward with? And that kind of thing. And not that you still won't have objections, but a lot of times people don't realize this. They're looking for certainty of the process from you. So if you show up like, I don't know, maybe like, yeah, you're right. That's your database. Yeah, I wouldn't give it away either. If you show up like that, then that's how they're going to respond. But if you show up as like, okay, let me tell you how this works, blah, 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 blah. I'll give you an example, okay? Imagine you go to let's go to elbow surgeons. You got a problem with your elbow. First guy says to you, well, I don't know. I mean, we do a lot of surgeries. I don't know if it's really going to work or whatever, but, it's $35,000. Let me know if you want to do it. And then you go get the second opinion. Let's say you're in a clinic that has like multiple doctors, kind of like multiple offices. So then you go to the next guy. He says, hey, in your case, Andrew, or hey, Frankie. He says, hey, Frankie, hey, just so you know, we've run a lot of elbow surgery over the last few years. It's not a magic cure-all, fix-all, but in 3 to 4 months, I can have you playing tennis again. It doesn't work 100% of the time. It works about 95%. And it'll typically cost about $35,000 if you wanted to get started. What we would do is we would have you fill out the insurance forms. We would finish the x-rays. We would schedule a time to actually do the surgery. Just be prepared. You're not going to be able to use your elbow and things like that for at least a few weeks. So you have to plan to take it easy. If you want to get started, I want you to go talk to my assistant over there, and she'll get you started on the forms. Let us know. I promise you that second doctor is going to close like 20 times as much as the first one. Right? So the other thing that's probably showing up is you may not realize that, but your own doubt and disbelief in the process is creating uncertainty in the minds of your prospects. Right? So if somebody says to me, hey, how do I know you're not going to steal my data? Right? That's an objection. I'm like, to me, that idea is absurd because I ain't going to steal your data. Right? I just want to fucking help you close some deals. So I would let them know, hey, dude, like, how much money do you think I'm making stealing a little fucking small list from a home renovator? Like, Google my name. I haven't done this shit. All I'm going to do, let me show you the exact fucking message I'm going to send these people. And that's really it. And I keep it like safely secure on my computer, and then like once I'm done using it, it's deleted. In the entire history of doing this, nobody's ever had a problem losing their fucking data, and I've been doing this 20 years, right? Like that kind of thing, right? So he's gonna feel my certainty that yeah, this guy's not gonna steal my data. Okay, I can trust him, but that's conveyed through certainty. That's conveyed through a little bit of pushback. And just so you know, every prospect's been burned before. They're the pretty girl. They sometimes have got 2-3 shit tests, and they're looking for you to not just walk away so easily. The pretty girl is looking for you to say like, no, I'm really interested in you. Hey, I get that you probably have to reject a lot of guys, but I think we're a great fit because we both love Pokemon or whatever the fuck you're into, right? Actually, I never been a Pokemon guy. I don't even know what the fuck Pokemon is. I just remember when they came out with the phone app, and I was in Hawaii at the time, and there was all these people walking around with their phone looking for invisible Pokemon in like the park, and they were all like trying to chase them, and I just remember that going on. Anyways, I hope that's helpful for you, because honestly, the hardest part of getting through the phase you're in is the between the ears, because it doesn't feel like it's working. You don't know what you're doing, and you don't really know if people are going to say yes, and yet you're still like making attempts, and you have no reason to really believe. And at the end of the day, you got to show up confident, certain. I know what to do next. Let me show you what I'm going to do right after you say yes. The more you demonstrate you have a plan after they say yes, by the way, the less objections they'll give you about the fact. In fact, one of the things I would bring up preemptively, now that like customer data is a concern for them, like let me tell you exactly how I'm going to keep your customer data protected. Shit like that. When I export your spreadsheet, it's password protected. So not just any dipshit can, even if they hacked my computer, they still wouldn't be able to open your fucking data. I keep that shit encrypted. Like, whatever you need to do. Last question we got. And by the way, for those of you guys who are leaving comments or whatever, I don't see them anymore. Facebook doesn't show them to me in live in real time, so I'll respond after. But this was various. So I had a couple of people message me in different ways, and they all kind of said the same thing, which is, how do I sell my shit in video? How do I sell my shit in video? How do I sell my shit in video? And this was people who are currently doing phone sales, and they are working. So I want to speak to you guys that are interested in, we have a phone sales process. It's working, but man, that closing in video sounds way better, okay? So the first thing I want to tell you is, do not break what is already working. It would be really stupid to cancel all your fucking calls and do all that shit. And so the simplest way to transition is simply after somebody books, or even right before they're about to book, give them the option to watch the video instead and see what happens. And almost always, typically version 1.0, this is a thing I wish more people knew, but getting your video closed is an iterative process, meaning it doesn't just like magically work the first time. There's some figuring shit out. And when you figure that shit out as a general rule, there may still be an objection or two in that video that is unresolved. And so what'll happen is people will show up warm, having watched it, they know the price, but there's a but. Like, but I don't know about this. And so what happens is a lot of times is by inserting the video into the flow, you still have a sales call, but instead of being this 60 to 90 minute convince me to work with you, it becomes this 5 to 10 minute, I got a question still. Do you think, this would still work in my scenario? So I'll give you an example. You show somebody SEO rankings in pay-per-click, and you show them all the business you generated for somebody. They show up to the call and they say, hey, I saw your video about blah, 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 but I'm in a small town. It's way smaller than the example you gave. I don't really think there's tens of millions of dollars of business in my town, like blah, blah, blah. Is it still going to work for me? And you say, hey, you're right. It still works in a small town, but it definitely is not going to be the same as ranking number one in Orlando. So, like you got to temper your expectations stuff. But the flip side of that is we can usually rank faster and get you there quicker and show you an ROI in a shorter amount of time, but it won't go as high. You won't ever make $10 million from this shit. And they go, okay, all right, well, that makes sense. Then, yeah, okay, we want to move forward. And then the next time you re-record that video, you go, hey, some of you guys wonder, will this still work in a small town if you're not in a big city like Chicago? And the answer is yes. And you answer that question preemptively, and what will happen is over time, people will say yes to the video and buy your shit without talking to you. So you'll know you have it right when basically people show up to calls and they're basically just going, so how do we get started? Right? Then at that point, you should just put the details of how to get started right in the video. But there's a transition period. And the other question I get asked a lot is, do I have one video for everybody to watch, or do I make different videos for everybody? And the answer to that is, in the beginning, I make different videos for everybody. Okay? 5, 10, 15 minutes long. And then once I get used to yes, then I switch over to, I call it one video to rule them all. One video to rule them all. And in the darkness bind them. Ha ha ha. There's some Lord of the Rings references for you guys. But one single video once you have it dialed in. But do not be tempted to automate shit before it's working. There's a tendency motherfuckers want to automate shit before it's working. Don't do that. Automate after it's working. Sounds simple, but like most people do the opposite in practice. So anyways, that's all I got on that. But like, if you want to switch to video, just add a video to your flow, test with it, and then build on it. And almost always, by the way, the video will have a doubly awesome effect. Firstly, it'll shrink the size of your sales calls. So like you'll save a significant amount of time on calls that you buy back a period of your life. And then the flip side of that is, it'll also disqualify people. Like when you tell people the price up front and what they're going to get for it, a percentage of people will be like, I can't afford $3,000 a month. That's way too fucking... And then they just cancel their call with you. And that's a win too. Why do you want to talk to somebody for 60, 90 minutes that can't afford what you got anyway? That was going to be a no matter what you did. Like, wouldn't you rather like video disqualify them? So like the no's are just as valuable to me. So anyways, that's kind of the basic process. That looks like all the questions we got for this Monday. It was a little light on the questions, but I wanted to reiterate for those of you guys who missed the intro, I did a live training on converting your service into tools. And the simple reason is that tools are more scalable than services. And if you know how to do that, you can scale the ever-living fuck out of, your stuff. Which is why I mentioned, like, software, typically when a software company is sold, they get 20 to 30x multiple. So if you got $1 million a year software, you can sell that for 20, 30 million. You got $1 million a year agency, you can sell that typically for 2 to 3 million. Why the big difference? Because tools scale better. Somebody buying a tool business, I mentioned this, I'm buying a software this morning, signed up for a new tool. I don't message the owners and be like, call me, I need an update. When are we going to blah, blah, blah? And they don't have account managers and shit like that. It's just a tool. Intellectual property they are renting access to, right? That's, to me, is the place you want to be. Anywho, that's all I got for you guys on this Monday. If you guys are interested in checking out that training, either drop the words free training as a comment. I'll send you a link to the replay, and or just shoot me a message and I'll send you a link to that, because I think that's pretty life-changing shit. In fact, for me personally, it has given me so much more leverage. Part of the reason is, people see my stories and shit and see me on the beach playing with my kids and they're like, how do you make money doing that? And it's because I'm renting tools, and tools don't require me to have onboarding teams and account managers and systems and stuff like that. So there can be reasons to do that, especially if you're really good at fulfillment. I always found I was better at selling than fulfilling, and I didn't like the fulfillment side. And so to me, scaling tools just works better. So if you guys are interested in turning your agency services or your expertise into tools, and by the way, even if you have 0 clients, I show you in the training how to get access to other people's tools. It's usually just a question going, hey, you got that thing over there that works. Could I pay you a royalty fee and use it somewhere else? And almost always they're like, really? You want to pay me for this? Sure, go for it. And so you can get access to tools super easy. Anyways, that's all I got for you guys in this video. Happy Monday, and may the Triforce be with you. Much love, you guys. I appreciate you guys, especially those of you guys who tune into this every week. You guys make this all worthwhile. Appreciate you guys. Buy my book, or I will sign you up for interpretive dance lessons given by an angry, angry mind.